Baseball. A sport that is historic. A sport that is exciting. A sport that brings people together. The national pastime. But one question is still being asked to this day. Who is the greatest pitcher of all time? Some people argue that the early days of baseball saw the greatest pitcher. It may have been Walter Johnson, who played for the Washington Senators from 1907 to 1927, or Christy Mathewson, who played for the New York Giants from 1900 to 1916. Both of these greats were members of the Baseball Hall of Fame's inaugural class, along with Ty Cobb, Honus Wagner, and Babe Ruth. Maybe the greatest pitcher was Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, or Nolan Ryan. Or maybe the greatest is yet to come. But I believe there was one man who, if we'd given him a chance in his prime, would have outpitched them all. In 1906, in Mobile, Alabama, Leroy Paige was born to John and Lula Paige. John was a gardener and Lula a domestic worker, and because of the segregation in the South, there was not much money to go around. So, when he was a young boy, Leroy and his friend Wilbur Hines would go down to the Louisville and Nashville railroad station and make money carrying bags for passengers. One day, Leroy was caught trying to steal some bags. Hines started calling him Satchel. The name stuck. When Paige was 12 years old, he was sent to the Industrial School for Negro Children in Mount Meigs, Alabama, for shoplifting and truancy from his old school, W.C. Council School. The Industrial School, like so many other schools across the nation, had a baseball team. It was there that he learned how to kick his front foot high and to release the ball at the last possible moment. Soon after he was released in 1923, he joined the Mobile Tigers, a semi-pro team that his brother Wilson was already playing for. Soon after, he joined another semi-pro team, the Down the Bay Boys. During one game, he had gotten himself in a jam in the 9th inning. Paige became angry with himself and started stomping around pitcher's mound, kicking up dust. The crowd started booing him, so he decided that, quote, somebody was going to have to pay for that, end quote. He called in the outfielders and had them sit in the infield. The fans and Paige's teammates were howling, but Paige retired the side and made a name for himself. Paige would use this method throughout his Negro League career whenever he was booed or subjected to racist comments from the stands. Over the next couple of years, Paige jumped around various teams, always going with the highest bidder. In 1927, he joined the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro National League. His pitching started out awkward and wild, and he refused help and advice from his manager. During one game, Paige incited a riot after he beaned 3 consecutive batters. Finally, Paige accepted help with his mechanics. He finished the season with a record of 8-3 with 80 strikeouts in 93 innings. Paige continued playing with the Barons for the next 2 seasons. In 1929, in a game against the Detroit Stars, Paige struck out 17 men, setting a new Negro National League record. That same year, he set the record of single-season strikeouts at 184. Because of his increasing earning potential, the Barons' owner, R.T. Jackson, would rent Paige to other teams for a game or two to draw crowds. Both Paige and Jackson took a cut of the earnings. Soon, the Depression hit. The Negro National League, like everything else, was affected. Paige, now released from the Barons, couldn't find a team that wanted to hire him. In June 1931, the Crawford Colored Giants approached Paige with $250 a month. Paige accepted and struck out 6 in his Crawford debut. In 1934, Paige threw a no-hitter for the Giants, with only a walk and an error preventing a perfect game. At the end of the season, Paige ended up 13-3, with a 31-4 record over his entire Crawford career. In 1936, a highly prospected player was making his last stop as a minor leaguer before joining the New York Yankees. His name was Joe DiMaggio. His stop was a game against one of the best pitchers in baseball, Satchel Paige. In the game, DiMaggio went 1 for 4 with the game-winning RBI. DiMaggio said he knew he could make it in the big leagues now because, quote, I hit off a Satch, end quote. Later, DiMaggio would speak of Paige as, quote, the best and fastest pitcher I've ever faced." End quote. In 1939, J.L. Wilkinson, owner of the Kansas City Monarchs, hired Paige and built a barnstorming team around him called the Travelers. In one game, Paige struck out 10 in 7 innings before the game was called on account of darkness. Later, in 1940, he was promoted to the Monarchs. In his first game, he struck out 10 in 5 innings, the game again called by darkness. When World War II hit the United States, Satchel Paige frequently played in exhibition games to sell war bonds and raise money for war-related charities.